What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Show Me Hoops podcast, the premier basketball podcast in the state of Missouri. And let me tell you, if it's good enough for us here in Missouri, it's good enough for you other 49 states. So we appreciate everybody that's tuning in. Today I'm going to talk about something near and dear to my heart, and I called this one The Genius of Ronnie Cookson Part 1, because if we're going to talk about all the genius of Coach Cookson, it would probably take like 1,000 of these podcasts. So for those of you that don't know Ronnie Cookson, legendary high school coach from Scott County Central, just a terrific coach. He was my high school coach. Coach Cookson won 13 state championships, the most of any coach in the history of the state of Missouri. Coach Cookson actually won 12 state championships in an 18-year stretch, including 7 in a row, which is also a record in the state of Missouri. So just a great coach. And like I always tell people, Coach Cookson was a master just at philosophy, at coaching philosophy, and at, I guess you could say, psychology, just player psychology, understanding how to push buttons. And so if I have to start somewhere talking about just the genius of Coach Cookson, there's a lot of different ways that I could start. Okay, but I'm going to start with something really simple that some people might not think of, because if you're familiar with the way Scott Central played, we pressed everybody, we ran up and down the floor, we scored a lot of points. They actually wrote a book about Coach Cookson called The Show Me Kings, about the great teams that he had like in the early 80s that just were just blowing everybody out. And one line from that book, Coach Cookson said the offense was shoot, holler, and follow. Like that, he was a country boy. So he said shoot, holler, and follow was the offense. Like we just shoot it and go after it. Just we were a great offensive rebounding team. I think that was always the perception of Scott Central. Like, we're just going to run down and just take a shot, just go, play volleyball in the rim, go get the rebound. But this is part one of the genius of Coach Cookson. I think one thing that he was terrific at was teaching shot selection. Coach Cookson was just a master at getting everybody to understand what was a good shot and what was not a good shot. And he did this really without even saying anything. He didn't talk a lot about shot selection. As a matter of fact, I don't know that I ever even heard him use the term shot selection. He didn't really harp on, hey, that's a good shot when a guy would take, a good shot. And he didn't make a big deal about guys that took a bad shot, but he would correct you and move on from it, and he would do it in such a simple way. Like, I'll give an example. Later in my career, Coach Cookson and I actually spent a year coaching together. And we had a kid on the team that was a freshman who was a super, super talented kid named Drew Thomas. And Drew was just one of those kids that was hardwired to score. He was a natural-born scorer. I think in his career he probably finished with, like 2,100, 2,200 career points. Was a multiple-time All-Stater. Ended up playing some JUCO ball and some Division II ball. Drew was a really, really talented kid, but never saw a shot that he did not like. And to complicate matters for Drew, being young and being so talented and wanted to score, we had other good players too. And some of those guys, might take a questionable shot every now and then. And I remember one night we were practicing and Drew did something, and he took the kind of shot that you wanted Drew to take. And my natural way of teaching shot selection was like, yeah, Drew, do that. That's your shot. That's what you want to do. Whereas Coach Cookson, he would never do that sort of thing. And where he kind of harnessed Drew and brought Drew in was every now and then when Drew would try to do too much, in a real simple way, he would just kind of say, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. And he could get Drew kind of back on track. But I think, we all understand this as coaches. Shot selection is not only getting that one kid to understand, here's a good shot, here's a bad shot, but it's getting the other kids on his team to understand, especially if it's a kid that you're going to need to take a lot of shots, that, hey, every now and then he might take one of these, and you guys just gotta live with one or two a night. Coach Cookson was terrific at that, and kind of goes into one of the other things that he was great at, and I could do a whole podcast on this. Coach Cookson gave me the best advice I ever got as a player. I was in 7th grade. The first day that I ever played for him, we were practicing, and I passed the ball to one of my teammates who dropped the pass. Threw him a good pass. He dropped it. I got a little upset with him. I didn't yell at him or anything like that. I think I said something like, come on, Chad, catch the ball. And Coach, before I could turn around, Coach Cookson was all over me. And, used some pretty strong language, but made me understand, hey, you keep your mouth shut and you let me do the coaching. And he was famous for saying this to us all the time. He would say, you worry about yourself. And what I come to find out later, that day I was just scared to death. I was 12 years old, and I just didn't want him mad at me. But what Coach Cookson was trying to say to me was, you made a good pass. You're out here playing well right now. Why are you getting upset and getting off of your game because of something that Chad did when he dropped the ball? And I hope my friend Chad is listening to this right now. I know he's laughing. But why are you upset right now because he messed up? You didn't mess up. You're playing great. Don't worry about what he did wrong. Let me worry about that as the coach. You just worry about yourself. You worry about doing your job. And he was a master at, that kind of psychology. I used to always say, Coach really coached like 3 teams. He had one team that was like 1 or 2 players, like a guy like Drew, who was really talented, but he needed more intense focus just as far as get him where you want him. Then he had the other 4, 5, 6 of us that were going to get to play, who were good players, starters, maybe first off the bench type of guy. He coached us maybe a different way. And then he had the rest of the guys who were on the team. We didn't play a very deep bench, but, we're just maybe on the team. And he treated those guys totally different. But he kind of brainwashed us from the time we were little kids to you worry about yourself. So when he always bragged on the guys on our bench, like Tywan Hamilton or those guys, or Donald Mosley, he just always bragged on those guys for how hard they worked, even though they might not have got to play as much as the rest of us. He didn't brag on me that way. He didn't treat me that way. But then he didn't treat me the way he treated Tony, our best player. So he was a master at getting everybody to stay in their own lane, and you worry about yourself. And so then I think that really lended itself back to what I was talking about before with the shot selection. He was just a master at getting all of us. It's kind of like he taught me what was a good shot for me. And nobody else cared what was a good shot for me because their job was to worry about themselves. And then he would get Tony, hey, we're going to need you to score more. You take more shots. Well, none of us got mad if Tony took a bad shot because that wasn't my place to worry about what he did. It was my job to worry about myself. And I think that that's a really hard thing to do in a team sport like basketball where, it's obvious we've got to pick each other up and we've got to help each other out, and it's a team game, and, what you do affects me. But really, he was just so good at that. I thought that was his biggest strength, was getting everybody to worry about themselves. And then as that pertained to shot selection, if I was playing on a team with Drew, which I actually coached Drew, I didn't play with him, but if I was playing on a team with Drew and he jumped up and took a bad shot, I would not have blinked an eye because my job was to go rebound if Drew shot the ball. Or my job was to check back because I'm the check back man. So, it was a reflex that you just worry about yourself. You just do your job. And as that pertains to shot selection, Coach Cookson's the best I've ever seen at getting everybody to understand what was a good shot and getting the other guys on the team to accept that these are the shots I'm going to take and these are the shots I'm not going to take. Bobby Knight said a great quote at a clinic I heard one time. He said, no kid hurts his team more than the guy who doesn't understand shot selection. And if you've ever played basketball or you've ever, guys that are coaches that are out there listening, you understand that. Like, if you got a guy that just doesn't care and he's selfish and he's going to do what he wants to do, he breaks down your morale. He breaks down your get-back defense, your transition defense, however you want to call it. There's just a lot of things that guy who takes a bad shot does to hurt your team. And so, the truth is, if you got a really, really good player, you do have to give him a little bit more rope. How do you get him to understand where that line is at between, hey, you need to take some shots like that because we need you to push the envelope, or hey, you're doing it too much and you're hurting the team. Where's that line at for the rest of his teammates that we need to get this guy the ball, but we need you to take this shot and we need, you to not take this shot. Coach Cookson was a master at that, and I think it just goes back to he got everyone to understand you worry about yourself. And I know that's not as popular to say now. Everything in the world has got politically correct. And there's a lot of coaching out there that's politically correct where, we want players to be leaders and tell each other what to do and coach each other. Well, I'm still old school. I believe that's the coach's job, to tell everybody what to do. And it's okay to encourage each other. It's okay to pick each other up. But I think that's my advice today. The genius of Coach Cookson was he got everybody to be intensely focused on their job. It's not your job and it's not your place to tell anybody else how to play because you're making mistakes while you're out there trying to play yourself. So he was so good at that, and then as a result, his teams understood shot selection so well. And especially, some of the teams he had that were so talented with multiple good players. Sometimes those teams are harder to coach and harder to get everybody to share and understand what good shots are than a team maybe with just one good player and a lot of role players. So he was the best I've ever seen at that. So I appreciate everybody listening to this. I think that's something that you can take back to your team to make your team better. Good shot selection, I guarantee it's going to make your team better. And so I would start with try to get everybody to focus on themselves and start to understand where they fit into that puzzle. And I think you're going to see your team win a lot more games this year. This is Coach David Heath. I appreciate everybody listening, and I hope you have an awesome week. JWT.